Welcome back to The Obvious Choice. Today is going to be a really fun episode because we're going to be starting the process that I went through for the Obvious Choice book for the next book, which right now the name of it that we sold to the publisher is Too Early for Coffee. That will probably not be the final name. In fact, that was like the one thing in the option proposal they said they didn't like, but I still kind of like. Anyway, I've got a couple other names for it. I'm not quite sharing yet what it's about. But the process with the obvious choice was that over the course of this podcast, we really workshopped every section, most sections multiple times. And Amber, I hope you two can attest just how much better it got as time went on.
Yeah.
It was pretty loosey-goosey at the beginning, pretty unfocused. The storytelling wasn't great. Now, I think that this will be better because this book, I have such a better idea of what this book is. I'm going into this book so much more prepared. The container of the book, like the capsule of the book, the structure of it, the narrative structure, what I'm trying to say, is much more well worked out than it was for the obvious choice when I started.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Okay.
Yeah, but so bad.
Ask me about that.
Because I remember with the obvious choice, it actually was going to be targeted towards the population that you most commonly serve. Like it was going to be specifically a sort of coaching business thing. But as you presented Too Early for Coffee, were they like, this is a good lane, let's just stay here? Like, is that how that one happened?
Something happened with Too Early for Coffee that with the option proposal. I wrote the shit out of that option proposal, man.
Yeah.
I wrote the shit out. Like, I looked at it and I was like, God damn, this is good. Like, I'd buy this.
Yeah.
Whereas I look back at the proposal for Obvious Choice and I was like, this is fine. You know, like the book ended up being way better than the proposal.
Right.
Whereas this proposal is worth it. So, but also the audience is much bigger. I mean, Too Early for Coffee, even, a coaching book, if it was like a coaching business book, I think would have been a hard sell anyway, just because like mass market, it's just hard to sell. Like you can't really sell a fitness book. I mean, you look at the numbers of fitness books that sell, it's just a shitty market to write a book for. There's just nothing kind of unique that you could say, you could, what you have to do is you basically have to be like Ben Carpenter, if you're familiar with him. I mean, dude is a legend. And he self-published a fitness book on fat loss and sold the bejesus out of it and then got contacted by a publisher and was like, we want to do your next book. And my guess is they gave him a lot of money to do it and really got behind him to do it. But this guy has been one of the best fitness content creators in the world for the last 15 years. And he has never sold anything because he has a full-time job as like a marketing director for a supplement company. So he doesn't even do coaching. So he's basically been giving like some of the best fitness content on the planet every single week, multiple times a week for the last 15 years. And then finally put out a book and it sold well. And then a publisher was like, we want the book. And then he just announced it. And like his book will sell hundreds of thousands of copies. That's not saying that the market that he's writing a book for is a good market, I guess is what I'm saying. And the same thing with like a coaching business book. The same thing even with a business book. I mean, the obvious choice, nonfiction business books is kind of like an all or nothing market. There's very few books that sell well. The books that sell well tend to be perennial sellers and sell millions and millions and millions of copies. Or they kind of flame and then they're out. I'm hoping mine, and my publisher hopes and thinks that mine has the potential to become one of the perennial seller type books. But I think you would be silly to write a business book on any information that is in any way expiring in the business world. So the market is just much smaller. Whereas Too Early for Coffee is really self-development. I mean, call it self-help, personal development. What it stems from is the journey that I've been on for the last 12 years. I mean, this will be my 13th straight winter abroad. So I've traveled the world effectively 4 months minimum every single year for the last 13 years. In addition to everything I've explored in business, in addition to everything I've explored personally, like before we decided where to buy our home, we rented a home in multiple neighborhoods to see what it was like living there. Like everything I've done has been this kind of exploration. Mm-hmm. And what started as a probably search for year-round sunlight or freedom or whatever I thought that I was doing, it wasn't that. Like that's why you might start doing something. That's not why you continue doing something. We start working out because we want to feel like we look better. We don't keep working out for the aesthetic reasons. We keep working out because it makes us feel better, because it gives us more confidence, because it's just healthier energetically, mentally, everything, right? That's what keeps us there, but it's not what started us going. And so what I realized over the years, a couple of years back, is like, why do I keep doing this? It's like, as trite as it might sound, and it's so embarrassing to say this, it's like it's been a search for happiness. It's been a search for joy. It's been a search to figure out how to put in and enter in more excitement into the mundanity of the monotony of everyday life. And I feel like I figured out some shit. And I've met a lot of people that have really figured out some stuff too, that I've taken lessons from and put them in. And so the audience for this book is much, much bigger. The potential audience. There are a lot of books in the self-help personal development world that sell hundreds of thousands and millions of copies. There are way more books in that world that sell that many copies than there are in the world of call it business. But this is what, Amber, you and I talk about all the time. It's like you can execute. I feel like in the personal trainer, in the online training world, historically, we've executed at a level 8, a level 9 out of 10. Like we have executed. We have built world-class products. We've provided world-class support. We've done great marketing. But the opportunity is a level 4, maybe a level 5 opportunity. It's just not a good opportunity. The people who are buying the materials, by and large, there are exceptions to this, but there's not a lot of them. There's not enough of them to make it a really good opportunity. The total available market isn't that big. The people by and large that are buying this, A, are very transient, B, don't have a lot of money or lack a certain seriousness about what they do. The people who don't have those things tend to do exceptionally well because while the barrier of entry is low, there's so few people that take it seriously that the ones who do tend to leapfrog above them. But I would say that it's a level 4, level 5 opportunity that we've been executing at a level 8, level 9 at. Whereas if we were to choose a level 8 or a level 9 opportunity, you could actually execute at a level 4 or 5 and do pretty well. And I aim to execute at level 8 or level 9. And so with this book, and to answer your question, I mean, the publisher recognized it the first minute that they saw it, that this, unlike the obvious choice, this is a level 8, this is a level 9 opportunity. And they have also had the experience of working with me on the other one and saw how I worked and I hit deadlines and everything, but also that I knocked the manuscript out of the park. And they're like, this dude can execute at a level 8, at a level 9. And we finally have an opportunity that matches that. Mm-hmm. The odds are much higher that this is going to be a bigger success. Mm-hmm. And so commercially, I hope the obvious choice will become a big commercial success. But I would be lying to you if I were to say that I think that the odds for too early of that being a big commercial success is much higher than the odds of obvious choice. And so the publisher, and this is very rare, they almost never buy an option proposal for a first-time author that does not have a history of sales with a traditionally published book. Okay. They almost never buy an option proposal before the first book has come out and proven itself in the market. They'll say, we want to wait and see. Like, we like the idea, we like you, but we want to wait and see how it performs. Whereas, and so, we sent in the option proposal, and my agent and I were prepared for that, right? And she messaged me and said, yeah, we have a meeting. Like, we sent him the proposal on like Thursday or something. They said they were going to check it out over the weekend, and they booked a meeting with her on Monday the next week. And she said, she's like, I've never experienced this before. She's like, they got on the call, and she was expecting them to ask questions, whatever, like all these questions about it. She said they got on the call and they said, we want this. She's like, oh, you don't have any questions? Like, no, we get it. Like, we 100% get it. We want this. And they made a better offer than they made on Obvious Choice. And like, just shows you the power of the market, and also the power of just showing that you can like execute on something, Does that answer your question?
It does. I love long form content, longer lasting content, because my reference point is music, of course, but
Sure.
because I know that when you get an opportunity and you knock it out of the park, and maybe that piece isn't the piece,
Yes.
if the next piece is the piece, it sells the first piece.
Yes.
Because when you have a great album and people say, but did you ever hear their first album? Oh, it was amazing. People go back and sort of rediscover. So I'm so excited. I'm excited about how excited you are about this next book, because I know it's not fake enthusiasm.
No,
because
it's not.
The last time you told us when you were not confident about certain ads, you're like, last chapter is just not good. I got to rework this thing. But to hear you say, this is really good work, objectively, I feel confident and even impressed by the quality of this work. That makes me excited to hear more and dive into the process again, and hear some of the passages from this book.
Yeah, man, awesome. I appreciate that. That's cool to hear. This is definitely the most true to me. This is definitely the book that I feel like I can uniquely write because of a very wide-ranging, long-standing bout of experience that I've had that is extremely unique, that is virtually unmatched. I mean, I don't know a single person. I know people who have been traveling or nomadic or whatever for as long as I've been. I don't know anybody who has done the combination of raised a family while doing it and grown basically from nothing and continued to run a multi-million-dollar business while doing it. I don't know anybody who's done that, those three things together, and figured out how to kind of keep it in balance. Well, just like living in caves and shit,
Yeah. This is selfishly the book that I wanted. I lobbied for this on some previous podcast. I said, I need the travel book. Yeah. I need the book that talks about all these weird stories. I love your other 11 books.
But it's not a travel book. But it's not a travel book. That's the interesting thing, right? It's like you'll see about it. You'll see that with a little bit about what I'm going to talk about here. My experience is travel, but you don't need to leave home to do a lot of these things. I think that there are so many ways to explore and make use of these principles to improve your day-to-day locally where you are, even by doing things like how you navigate the menu at a restaurant a little bit differently. There's just so much that
so you're saying for people who like me that don't like leaving the house will still benefit.
Yes.
100%. No, you'll be a good litmus test for this. You'll be a good litmus test. But when I mean, talking about the music thing, 2 weeks ago, I went to see Green Day. You know what tour they're on right now?
No, I don't know what tour they're on, but I love Green Day.
They are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the album Dookie.
How old am I?
And so,
Damn it.
And so me and a bunch of high school buddies, and Allison came, went to the box at the Rogers Center where the Blue Jays play, because they played. And so Dookie was their first album. They had an indie album before, but Dookie was their first album. And so Green Day played the entirety of Dookie and American Idiot, 2 full albums, start to finish. And Dookie was 30 years ago, American Idiot was 20 years ago. Green Day had like 8 albums. None of their other albums were particularly commercially successful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they would have been successful if the band wasn't Green Day.
Right.
But the other albums went along for a ride. I mean, basically nothing came close to matching Dookie. And Green Day sold 75 million albums. Like, they're one of the most successful bands of all time. And 30 years after this album came out, they sold out 40,000 plus seats at the Rogers Center.
It's crazy.
Isn't that incredible? Bunch of freaking soccer dads, man. It's great.
I love it. That's what they are now. Soccer dads.
But that's what one great piece of work can do. And this is why I'm so fucking passionate about resisting the urge to obsess over expiring, superficial, day-to-day content that has a place, that has a purpose, fine. But if that's all you do, you are going to be caught in this perpetual cycle that's just going to burn you out and spiral downwards. You're going to fall prey to algorithms, platforms, whatever people are upset about today. I mean, at the end of the day, one great piece of work is going to make a world of difference. But most people ever never produce, a great piece of work, a great platform, a great product. And I think less and less and less with every coming day because of the pressures to perform. When I started the PTDC, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6:45 a.m., you had emailed to you a new article. We then posted that article on Facebook. That was it. 2 pieces of content a week. And that felt like it beat me down trying to keep up with it. Even with a team, that was difficult to keep up with. Well, now you're told that if you don't do 2 or 3 pieces of content a day, you're going to be left behind. God damn, man. There's no room to do anything else. You know how quick 7 a.m. hits again?
Right.
Jesus. It's Wednesday already. I have to write my Friday email today. Like, I don't know how it's Wednesday. I just wrote that email.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes around so fast.
That's
so important. Careful.
That's so
you
important
have
to say.
platforms like Pinterest where you have to do like 20 to 30 a day to keep up.
Wait, what?
Maddening.
Yeah, 20 to 30 pens a day. So if you're trying to do something there, it's wild what you have to do on Pinterest to make it work.
I don't know what that even means. Okay.
The women in the audience will know.
Yeah.
So
it's our vision board of life.
Yeah. So a lot of this book, a lot of Too Early for Coffee, the central theme is the importance of seeking out contrast. It's that there's no one best way to live or do anything really. It's that the best way actually is to seek out contrast, is to almost escape, but strategically escape, to do things differently from time to time in order to better figure out what the best way to do something is. And so this first chapter, a lot of the chapters are based around this, and the overall theme is based around that idea. And so the first chapter is checking in by checking out. The only way to check into your life is to check out of your life. So there's this cliche that says that you've got 2 choices for how to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. No matter deep down the achievement rabbit hole you are, it's possible to dig your way out, to walk about wide-eyed like a kindergartner, excited once again about the littlest blades of grass, days filled with surprises. Now, the worst thing about cliches is that they mean nothing, right up until the moment that they mean everything. So it was nighttime after a flight. And we just got home after 4 months in Nicaragua and Mexico. This was this past winter. The kids were super happy because they were able to see their toys again. Like when we travel with backpacks. We didn't have a single check-in bag. Family of 4 months away, Central America. We didn't have a single check-in bag. The kid's toy was a spatula. Like,
that's awesome.
You want kids to be excited about toys and stuff. It's like the way to do that is to not have really good toys and then to have toys, like contrast, right? So the kids were happy to see their toys again. And Alice and I went upstairs to put our backpacks down. And we walked into a bedroom and both started laughing immediately. So a bed, a bed, I don't know why anybody would know this. A bed, for those of you who don't know what my bed looks like, my bed has 4 pillars. And they call it a princess bed. This has always been like Allison. It was like the one thing. Like I got a monkey lamp. It's behind me. When we moved into our house, that's what I always wanted. She wanted a princess bed. Okay, so that's what we got. So I got her a princess bed. She got me a monkey lamp. And so it has 4 pillars. Right? And over a year ago, Calvin made this giant spider web across the top of it by tying Allison's yarn. And in the middle of it, hanging down, I fuck you not, was a slinky. Okay? So that thing stayed there for a year. My wife and I slept under a spider web that caught a slinky for over a year. It's easy to fall into patterns, to lazily accept even the dumbest additions to our lives, to never assess whether a thing helps us or, in this case, makes any fucking sense, to keep things how they are because that's how they were. Why was there a spider web above my bed? Why had it been there for over a year? It was cute when Calvin did that when he was 5. He'll be 7 in a week. Maybe that shouldn't exist anymore. And so I ask you, how many spider webs hanging slinkies do you have above your bed? How much stuff exists in your life that any outsider would look at and immediately tell you is dumb, but they've kind of been there for a while for reasons that you can't describe? How many things do you do that you don't need to do but have always done, and so you blindly keep doing it? What is it in your life that's just there, that doesn't need to be there? For many of us, the great danger is that we skim our lives. We're habitual by nature. We fall into patterns and we get stuck. We build habits and we never challenge them. We dig ourselves into holes and keep digging, never noticing that the ladder is in our blind spot. Patterns can be useful, same as habits, except sometimes both need to be reassessed, and sometimes both need to be broken. Sadly, many people end up like gyroscopes, spinning around at a frantic pace but never going anywhere, so driven to live a successful life that they settle for a mediocre version of it, burned out by bore-out. So we have this water dispenser at home. My kids love to play with it. And they get a cup, and they fill that cup to the top with the water dispenser. Then they try to pour in a couple more drops. Amber's nodding. She knows this. She gets this. Anybody who's kids get this.
This is painful.
Because what they're trying to do is they're seeing how much they can add in before it spills, which it always does, of course. Now, the whole process is silly because an already full cup can maybe absorb a bit more, but you'll have to be careful and it's probably going to spill and make a mess anyway. Alice and I get frustrated. We toss them a towel and they clean up and we wonder why they don't get it and keep making the same mistake. But then one day I realized that us adults do the same thing, don't we? We fill our cup to the brim with commitments and obligations, then we try to add a little bit more and it spills over and we burn out. So maybe we're the ones who don't get it. Maybe we need a trash cleaning function to remove 20% of the junk that we've allowed to accumulate. But our physiology opposes that. Our limbic system opposes that. 9 out of 10 times it's better to remove than add, but our fear-loving brain remembers the one time we removed something that we needed, stopping us from doing it in the future. And so, We pile on to-do lists, productivity apps, and hacks, not because they're helpful, but because they feel safer, blinding us to the reality that the more we add, the bigger we let the problem get, the messier the puddle we're eventually going to have to clean up will be. The producer of old age is habit. The deathly process of doing the same thing in the same way at the same hour after day after day after day, first from carelessness, then from inclination, at last from cowardice or inertia, wrote Edith Wharton, who was the first woman to win the Pulitzer Prize. The only way to solve the "it's just there" problem is to leave and come back, to look at your life with fresh eyes, to change your autopilot, to challenge your lazy assumptions. You can't put more into an already full cup before emptying it first. In order to add, you must first subtract. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to living well, because the hot water that softens a carrot will harden an egg. You see, everybody has different needs, wants, and desires, and that's cool. So let's find yours. You're not going to find it by spinning round and round in the same routine, though. An unbalanced life well lived is an iterative process, a constant examination of yourself, of your actions, of what you own, of who you surround yourself with. Each time you check out of your life and view it as a dispassionate outsider, you'll be able to check back in a way that's a bit closer to your true self. And that's when you're going to walk downstairs, grab a pair of scissors, and cut that damn spider web off of your bed.
I take a picture first.
The older we get, the less we tend to explore, to learn, to experience. That's because the older we get, the more productivity we tend to seek. We can't get so caught up in how we think, behave, and act that we stop expanding. We can't let the bands of our lives constrict as we age. So this feels like a good starting point. What do you guys think?
Love it.
I like the example used to immediately understand. Within probably a paragraph and a half, I understood the concept of checking out to check in. I think that's integral in the introduction of the concept. It was immediately easy for me to understand, but I had no context for any of the experiences, not being a parent, not having a spouse. I think I'm probably I think I'm probably the furthest away from, I always get that confused. I think I'm probably the furthest away from being able to easily empathize with the story that you told.
Right.
But even for me, it was an immediate understanding.
Because all of us now are immediately thinking about the stupid thing that exists in their lives, or that they're like looking at right now with like, yeah, I've been talking about changing that or taking that thing down for a long time.
I've got a whiteboard on my refrigerator with a chronological check boxes of what I ate in the week of March 13th.
It's August 14th for anybody who's
not. Why don't I just erase it?
Yes.
Well, why don't I just erase it or just take the damn whiteboard? Nope. For some reason, it's there, and I see it so frequently that I've gone blind to it. I don't even see it.
It's like you ever like have nose blindness? Like you go on a trip,
yes,
and then you come back to your house, and you're like, "Man, house smells different." Like
smells
I have dogs. So, like, if I leave for a week and I come back, I'm like, damn, I need to wash the dogs because it smells like
exactly
dogs.
What it is. It's existential nose blindness. That's what it is. I have existential nose blindness. I'm just not even aware of my existence in any way. That I need to change. I need to step away from it and come back to it so I can smell my life.
Like I had the tape in my living room forever for painting. I finally fixed it, but it was like probably a year before I did it.
I'm going to tell you the most common Black people thing ever in the South.
I love Black people things. Go on.
Yeah. Do we
Yo,
need
who's all out there? Who's all out there?
Who all
over
over
there?
there? So,
Who all over there?
so I can say this because I went in so many houses as an insurance agent. Y'all, it's the damn energy conservation yellow sticker in the upper right-hand corner of the flat screen TV. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there's a triangular yellow sticker when you get your flat screen TV, and it's talking about energy conservation and the different modes of energy. And man, I'm telling you, Black people leave that yellow sticker on that TV for 45 years straight.
Amazing.
It's
like that is no longer energy efficient.
it's like, man, that's got nothing to do with anything in terms of your TV viewing, except for the fact that you can't see Wolverine's blade when he unsheathes his claws because the goddamn sticker's in the way.
Because the sticker's
right?
in the way.
Take the sticker off. And that's so common. And I've done it. But it's one of those type deals.
What I like about starting with an example like that, that's so ridiculous, is that what you just demonstrated, and also what Matt, who's the VP at HarperCollins, demonstrated when we were talking over the idea. So like my agent does all the option proposal negotiation, everything. And then once we accept it, we have basically like a kickoff call. And so we had that. We were talking about the idea and the concept of the book and stuff. And what you just demonstrated and what Matt demonstrated is the best examples are examples that illustrate a point and make the point, and then everybody immediately can apply that to something very specific to their own life.
Yes.
So you applied it to the whiteboard that has what you ate on your fridge on the week of March 13th.
Right.
Matt applied it immediately to him and his wife are moving houses. And as a result, they were forced to stage their house. And it was unbelievable to him how much stuff they had accumulated over the years that was just there, that they're not taking with them to the new house. He's like, we had a full garage. We now have room for our car.
Right.
It's just, it's that present. But I like the whiteboard example. I might add that into the book. And of course, as always, when, not give you credit for it.
That's what I expect.
Yes.
And dare I say it's what it deserved.
Yeah. Okay. Next, let's move on. Probably one more section. What's interesting too is that, like, if I'm not careful, this book is going to get long. Like the chapters in Obvious Choice were like, the shortest one was about 1,800 words. The longest was about 3,500 words. That book is about 55,000 words, to be about 260, 270 pages for context. And
I got a curious audience question. I got to ask you about this on my behalf and the audience. Which do you prefer? Would you prefer I need to write more, or would you prefer I need to edit down as a creative in the context of writing a book?
I think it's a stylistic choice. I think it's also just like what kind of material you have and what you're trying to do with it. The Obvious Choice doesn't need that much material because it's fundamental foundational truths. You give one example to kind of hit it home. You make the statement, you give some sort of an illustration, an illustrative example of it, and then you get the hell out and let people do the work in their own head. A book like this is more a journey. And so there'll be more storytelling in it. There'll be more examples in it. But I think it is, I mean, when you sign a book deal, you commit to a certain word count. Mm-hmm. And some publishers are looser than others. I did not sign with a publisher for Obvious Choice specifically because they were very tight with their word count. They said to me very clearly, our books are almost all exactly 75,000 words, give or take. Mm-hmm. And that's just what we like to publish. And I spoke to two other authors who published them, and they both said the same thing. They said it wasn't a bad experience. It was a good experience. They had great experiences, but they said, my book came in under that a little bit. And they basically said, find more stories to pad it because we need to bring it up to that point. And I just said, I'm not doing that. Because both of their books, one of them in particular, is definitely padded. Like you zone out. The other one, he's just such a phenomenal writer and storyteller that it's great, and it's just you go on a journey with him. So to answer your question, Ren, I don't think there's better or worse. My general rule of thumb has always been as short as possible, as long as necessary. Don't give 2 examples when 1 will do. If you can cut down the lengths of something, cut it down. If you can use simpler words, use simpler words. If you can use shorter sentences, use shorter sentences, unless you have a very good reason not to. I do play around with cadence a bit. If I'm talking about something exhausting, I will purposefully exhaust the reader with the writing and use longer, more conjugated or run-on sentences. But then right after that, I'll energize the reader by going very short, very punchy, and bring them right up. I think that that's part of the experience reading when you read something really, really great. But the reason that I bring it up is like this chapter right now, chapter 1, is sitting at 6,300 words. And I mean, it will probably be cut down, but there's just so much more that I have to say here.
Is there room to do like a you know how like in movies they have like the director's cut, or where they have like where they add in the extras, like to like publish those as like an article or something, like just out of curiosity, because like sometimes you just love it so much and it's great on its own.
So this is where this is version 1, right?
Yeah.
I will go over this material probably 50 times before it's published. Yeah. And 5 to 10 other people who are way better than I am editorially will also go over this material. That's one of the benefits of having a world-class editor. They won't let me get away with it if it's longer than it needs to be. To answer your question, though, there is. Like Mike Easter, for example, his newsletter, which is fantastic, it's one of the few that I pay for as well, is basically all runoff material from his books. He adds to it and stuff, but it's basically runoff material from his books. At least that's what he told me. And that's very, very common. It's like, hey, buy 2 or 3 copies of my book, or pre-order 2 or 3 copies, and you get the lost chapters. It's like, you just get the shit that didn't make it into the book. Like, it's like you get like the throwaway stuff is what you get, right? It's like not as good, or just doesn't fit that theme, which is more often the case. So there is, Amber. My opinion is, if it fits, it fits. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. I keep my sections short regardless. So there's pacing throughout the book. If a chapter is 6,000 words, it means that it's going to have 8 to 10 sections as opposed to 4 to 6, basically. That's all. Okay. I think we've already done this on the podcast, so, don't answer, but I'll read it. What year was Gandhi born? So I'm going to ask the listener this. What year was Gandhi born? If you don't know the answer, it's perfectly fine. It's not Tuesday night trivia at Trixie's Cantina. When you went to Trixie's a couple weeks ago, how'd you like it?
I was about to say Trixie's has the best cantina I've ever had. Cantina was delicious.
2 for 1 chicken wing Tuesday at Trixie's Cantina. Instead,
what?
So if you don't know the answer, it's perfectly fine. Instead, what's the earliest year that you think that Gandhi could have been born? And then the latest year that you think that could have been born. So the range. So when Jason Pfeiffer, the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, was asked this question, he said 1940 to 1955. And he was wrong. But knowing when Gandhi was born isn't important. What is important, according to Warren Hatch, who's the CEO of a highly sought-after forecasting company called Good Judgment, is to know how confident you should be in the knowledge you think you have. What a question. How confident should you be in the knowledge you think you have? How confident are you in the knowledge that drives the life you've chosen to live? How confident are you in what you believe to be true? How confident are you that the people you surround yourself with are the right people for you to be surrounding yourself with? How confident are you that you've explored enough of other people's worlds to know how to best exist in your own? Pfeiffer gives this example in talks to both executives at Fortune 500 companies and on college campuses. According to him, there's a fascinating difference in how the Gandhi question is answered between the two audience groups. When he's talking to experienced professionals, he's found that their answers have tight bands, 15 to 20-year ranges, which is what he had, 1940 to 1955, 15-year range. But when he does this with college students, they'll say, I don't know, 1800 to 1900? And they'll throw out like 100-year, 200-year, even 500-year ranges. And everybody starts laughing. But did you catch the most important part of what they said? It was 3 words. They said, I don't know. Because they admitted that they didn't know the answer, they gave themselves permission to widen their bands, to guess. The more you know, the more you move throughout the world with the self-directed expectation that you should have the answer. When it comes to Gandhi's age, there's a right answer and a wrong one. Now, with life, there isn't. The best you can do is make a best guess. And so you must program yourself to go into any situation where even if you don't know everything, and you never will, to not have a kind of false confidence in making that decision. Said another way, we must admit our ignorance. The world is too complex for there to be a good reason for any truly great decision. Now, young people tend to be better than older people at this. They have no expectation that they know the answer, and therefore it's perfectly reasonable for them to just have wild guesses. And those wild guesses are basically them saying, I don't know. I have no idea. They explore more. They take more risks. They do stupid things more. And the amazing result of all of this is that they're also often right more. None of us have basically any idea about anything. That's because it's impossible to basically have any idea about anything. When faced with something you don't understand, the most natural thing to do is to be afraid and pretend stuff makes sense when it doesn't. The correct way to exist, and more interesting way to exist, is to admit that you have no clue what's going on and y'all just kind of go with it. Think about it like this. The light bulb was only invented 145 years ago. 145 years ago, nighttime was dark, like the sun set and you went to bed because you couldn't see shit. How often do you stub your toe these days because it's dark? Not often, right? Yo, people back then must have stubbed their toes all the time. Then some guy came along and was like, I can make fire inside a glass that melts a wire but doesn't melt the wire too quickly, and when that happens, it'll create light at night so you guys don't have to stub your toes anymore. Your phone is a box made out of materials dug out of the ground. When you tap it, it sends a signal to space. Space then responds with any piece of entertainment or information ever created. It is magic. It is literally magic. We can harness it. We can recreate it. Nobody understands it. I've got this friend who visited me in Kotor in Montenegro when my family lived there. I'll call him Dak Prescott because I've always wished that I knew somebody with a name like Dak Prescott. And so I realized afterwards when I made this up, I Googled, I was like, there has to be somebody actually named Dak Prescott. And I was like, the quarterback of the Cowboys, his name is Dak Prescott. That guy must be cool as shit. But I didn't know that when I wrote this. Yeah. So Dak and I walked through the gates into Old Town in Kotor. And him and his girl went straight to a Turkish store selling fake purses. They were there for 3 hours debating endlessly about the stitching and zippers and whether it would pass for the real thing. Later that day, I posted a pic of us together because we were together in Montenegro, right? And I got this message from somebody else who I'm friends with. Yo, is your boy Dak Prescott a good person? His relationship with money and the need to discuss it publicly isn't exactly in line with the person you typically surround yourself with. Always been fascinated by the guy, but I have a hard time imagining I could enjoy his company. Bro, I typed back. I just spent 3 hours in a Turkish store in Montenegro selling fake purses with him and his girl, and at the end, they didn't buy a thing. And you know what? I couldn't look away. I was enthralled. They were so into it. Dak's unabashedly himself, and he doesn't give a shit who notices. And I really enjoy people like that. Hank Green, one of my favorite 2-book part series, in part 2 is in this book called A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor, he wrote. So here's a really stupid thing about the world. The trick to looking cool is not caring whether you look cool. So the moment you achieve perfect coolness is simultaneously the moment that you actually completely don't care. Dak Prescott doesn't care what you think about him. Dak Prescott will be in couture for 2 days and spend his first 3 hours debating over how real the fake purses are with a Turkish guy, and then decide that the stitching isn't close enough to the real thing and walk out. Then Dak Prescott will say that he's hungry, and you'll go to a restaurant with him, and he'll order cheese pasta and ask for extra cheese. And when it comes, tell the waiter that it still isn't cheesy enough and ask for more cheese on the side. Dak Prescott doesn't care what you think about him. Dak is so cool, man. Being stuck is an artificial constraint. It's an imaginary island floating in the fluid world, the most hopeless prison in the world. Being stuck isn't a place you're forced into by somebody else, but a jail in which you enter voluntarily, you lock the door, and you throw away the key. It's a prison where the older you get, the less you tend to explore, and the tighter the lock gets. There's no steady state. You're expanding or you're constricting, you're loosening or you're tightening. When we deceive ourselves into thinking we're informed more than we are, we make decisions ungrounded in reality. And the consequences compound. When we say, I know this, the next thing that happens seems benign. Because I know this, I'm going to do that. And then it keeps going. Because I'm doing that, I'm surrounded by these people. Followed by, because I'm surrounded by these people, I also know this. And so on. And before long, you're stuck on an island, surrounded by people who think and act like you, self-assured in your mutual delusion. Meanwhile, the rowboat you desperately need to escape has been there the entire time, just out of sight, hidden behind some bushes you never thought to look behind. College students tend to be less afraid to admit their ignorance. And sometimes this gets them into trouble. But even if it does, it's never that serious over the long term. The Gandhi problem demonstrates a rising and damaging overconfidence as we age. The more we learn and the less success that we achieve, the more narcissistically protective of our way of being that we become. You would have gotten the Gandhi question right if you admitted that you had no idea. Because then you could answer confidently with the wider band. Once admitting your ignorance, you could have said, I have no idea. Yeah, sometime between the year 1600 and 2024, that would have been correct. Gandhi was born in 1869. 1600 to 2024 would have been the correct answer. I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, that's I've seen people go back and forth on Dunning-Kruger. I've seen the actual information from Dunning and Kruger and actual contradictory information that the experiment in its totality was not very well done.
Okay.
I like the way this conceptualizes our tendency to our tendency to develop much more of a fixed mindset as we experience things, and our tendency to have much more of a growth mindset in the absence of some of those experiences, almost chiefly due to ego. Right?
Ego and the search for productivity and efficiency and getting ahead.
It's a very interesting question. It's a very interesting invitation to exploring self-awareness, I think. And for me, it was worded in an entertaining way. I like the way that it was worded.
Thank you. This is the first time that I've read it out loud. And so the first thing that I noticed was that there's just a lot of typos. But
that's the best part about reading anything out loud. My God. Like everything I write, I read it out loud for that reason, because I catch so much.
Oh, I do the same thing. It's the best hack to write better is to read your work out loud. And I'll often, with the book, like with Obvious Choice, I recorded it. Like I recorded myself reading it and then left it and then went back and listened to the recording a couple weeks afterwards. And it's so immediately obvious which parts work and which parts doesn't work when you do that. But I like the pacing of it a lot. There's one thing Dak Prescott, I sent the real Dak Prescott that section, and his name's Rudy Mayer, and he's great. He's been in the world for a long time, and I sent it to him. I was like, I just said, no idea whether this will make it into the final version of the book I'm writing, but this is you're Dak Prescott, and I sent him that, and what he wrote back, I'm going to add a little bit to. Because what do you go back? If you know Rudy, you know how just like off the wall he is. He's a character. He's a caricature of himself, and as a result, he rubs people the wrong way. I fucking love the guy. I love the guy, man. I've never bought anything that he's done, so I can't speak to the quality of the work that he does. He's had success with it, so I imagine it's good. But he's just so unabashedly himself, and I just really enjoy being around people like that. And so I sent him this section, and he wrote back to me. He's like, wow, I love this. He's like, so magical and thoughtful. Thank you for sending it. That was still one of my favorite days of my 2 years as a nomad. And then, he had told me this before, but he says he almost actually interned with me in Thailand like 7 years before then. He sent me a message asking if he could fly to Thailand to intern with me. And I said no. And now he's like, way more conventionally successful than me, and I'm like, maybe I should have just like said yes and then like had you do that for me. But here's what he wrote afterwards and why I wanted to bring it up. He says the funny thing about your story, it's one reason why I think I'm successful. I always just do what I think is best or right. Because my old UK girlfriend before I left England hated it, as I was just myself, and she was an upper-class English girl, and I would be loud and wild and always embarrass her. I think the sad reality of social media is that people are less and less their authentic selves and so afraid of judgment. I often say one of life's greatest gifts is the gift of not caring about the opinions of everybody else. Like I sent him this. He didn't know I was writing it, right? I haven't spoken to this guy in a while. But he actually says, one of the main reasons why I think I've been successful is exactly what you laid out, which I think is quite telling. Just doesn't give a shit. He's going to go to a restaurant and ask for cheese pasta with extra cheese and be like, this doesn't have enough cheese in it, bring me more cheese. Just not give a shit. It's like, charge me whatever you want, man. I want more cheese. That was so disgusting. The amount of cheese he put on that thing. My God, that was disgusting.
Growing up.
So disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
So disgusting. And it was so hot. It was like, the one part that I probably won't fit in because I don't know how to fit it in like well, but it was like 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Like it was 30 plus Celsius there. This was summertime in Montenegro. It was so hot. And he was eating so much cheese.
it hurts my stomach hearing the story.
Poor girl.
Yeah.
Oh my God. She loves it, man. She loves it. She's still with him. Same girl that he was with when we were together there. I think they're married now. She loves it. She's all in. She's, wearing the red jacket with him and everything. It's great.
I thought you were sending that passage when you said the real Dak Prescott. I thought you meant the football player. I was like,
that's what I thought.
I think I'm gonna have to change the name.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that I'd heard the name before, which is why I said that. But I honestly had no idea it was a football player until I Googled it after I'd written this section.
You can ask
what should I call it? Like,
put an asterisk and say not the real Dak. You got permission.
Yeah,
like the person
it's
that
messy.
wanted to use Terry Crews on their credit card.
Oh, that's fine.
That's funny.
Because it was a copyright issue, so she got permission. Like she tweeted him and got permission from him to use it, and so she got her credit card with his face on it.
I'll probably do I don't know, like Dak Power or something. I like Dak. I think Dak is good. What's a good last name? What's a good last name for Dak? You think about it and give me something. I'm going to look for another episode to recommend, and you can do that.
Dak Pendleton.
Yeah, keep going.
2 upper class.
Yeah.
What are we shooting for here? Are we shooting for action hero?
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, action hero. Yeah. Like Max Power.
There's a movie from Kevin Hart where there's a character that uses the last name Mitchum. Dak Mitchum.
Ooh, that's good.
Mitchum sounds like an 80s action hero.
It does.
Dak Mitchum. How do you spell Mitchum? M-I-T-C-H.
I would go M-I-T-C-H-U-M.
Dak Mitchum.
But it could be an E-M. It could be an E-M.
Dak Mitchum. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, give me one more. Dak Mitchum's good. Not 100% sold on it, but Dak Mitchum's good. It's got to be 2 syllables.
Okay.
It's a power move. Dak.
I would definitely, Kenny Powers comes to mind, so Dak Powers.
Yeah, Dak Powers.
Right. Dak Powers feels sort of right to me.
I like Dak Mitchum more.
Dak Mitchum is
a
little bit more upper crust.
Yeah. Dak Mitchum. Dak Powers is like, I'm gonna punch you in the face and steal your woman.
Yeah.
Dak Mitchum is more like, I want to have a cheese pasta with that guy.
Yeah.
And get extra cheese.
I don't want to do
Dak
that with
Mitchum.
anybody.
I want to sit overlooking the Black Sea on this old fortress and eat some cheese pasta.
95 degrees.
I don't want any of this fresh fish. I don't want any of this fresh food. I want some cheese pasta with extra cheese. Yeah, that's a Dak Mitchum move. I like it.
Get that Mediterranean diet the fuck out my face. Put some cheese on this pasta.
Get this motherfucking Mediterranean diet out of my fucking face. I'm Dak Mitchum. I like it.
Weren't you working on a book at one point?
Oh yeah, no, that's what this is. Did you lose the thread?
Yeah,
that's what
I
this
did.
Is.
Yeah, I know I did.
I have a fitness parable that I'm working on.
That's what I thought. Okay,
yeah. I have a fitness parable that I'm working on slowly. That is considerably more ridiculous than everything we've just been talking about. So maybe Dak will make an appearance.
I'm excited.
My favorite part about the fitness book, about the parable, was that there's a couple interludes that I've written in, and the interludes are this character that's nicknamed as the Gimmick, and and it's basically just him like falling for some fitness gimmick. And it has nothing to do with the story at all. It just like bothers you and gets in the way for a little bit and then goes away, which is exactly what fitness gimmicks are like.
That's awesome.
So that's my favorite part so far. Yeah, he has a pointy mustache and a Bosu ball for a hat for some reason. Okay. If you are still with us and looking, God bless you, and looking for another episode to listen to, go check out episode 246. It's called Being the Editor of Your Own Life. So if you jived with this, with what we've been talking about here, go check out that episode, Being the Editor of Your Own Life. I believe, everybody talks about how you're the author of your own life. I don't actually believe that. I think that you're the editor. And the reason for that is much of our story we don't have control over. We don't have control where we're born, our intelligence, whether we're short, whether we're tall, black, white, male, female, him, her, they. You don't have control over all these things. But you can edit the story that's already started to be written for you. And I think there's a lot of power in editing. And when I started to take this viewpoint, this vantage point of my own life, I started to make all these tiny little tweaks to improve it. Nothing major, but tiny little tweaks. And so I talk about that in that episode 246, Become the Editor of Your Own Life. It got a really good reception when it came out. So enjoy it. Hope you're good.